afternoon, everyone. This is the afternoon portion of our Washington County Board of County Commissioners work session for Tuesday, March 4th. We have 4 members of the Board of Commissioners. This is Chair Catherine Harrington. I'm joined by Commissioner Jason Snyder, Vice Chair Commissioner Pam Treese, and Commissioner Jerry Willey. So we're picking back up in our work session agenda with topic 4. Recycling Modernization Act update. Turn it over to you, Mira.
Well, thank you so much, Chair Harrington. Good afternoon, Board of County Commissioners. For the record, my name is Mira Samantel. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Director of Health and Human Services. We are looking forward to sharing with you today information and an update about the Recycling Modernization Act. I will go ahead and turn it over to Erin Stein, who is our interim solid waste and recycling manager, and I will be driving the slides for her.
Great. Thank you, Mira. Good afternoon. Well, let's get started. I won't take much of your time today. I thought I'd just do a brief overview of our agenda. We're going to be touching on the Recycling Modernization Act today. So we'll go over a purpose and a desired outcome for our communication today. I'll touch on an overview of the Recycling Modernization Act. It's also known as RMA. We will look at what a modernized recycling system is going to look like in the state of Oregon. I'll touch on how the county is preparing for RMA, and then briefly talk about what will happen starting July 1st of 2025. And then I'll have some time at the end for any questions that you all may have, but feel free to interrupt as we go as well. So our desired purpose today is just to bring an overview of the RMA, which goes into effect on July 1st, and any impacts that implementation is expected to have on the county. And our desired outcome is just a general awareness for your board, because things like our solid waste administrative rules and Washington County Code 804 are going to require some updates to come in alignment with the state regulation. So the Recycling Modernization Act will be implemented on July 1st, and I thought I'd just give a brief bit of background. The metro region of Oregon has a robust on-route collection system for recyclable materials for our households and businesses. It's guided by the state's Opportunity to Recycle Act, which went into effect in 1991, and our community has had the benefit of regular access to recycling services for decades. The same cannot be said for communities across the state, and that's why the Department of Environmental Quality, or DEQ, has advocated for major changes. The Oregon State Legislature passed RMA, Senate Bill 582, in 2001, and the new law went into effect in January of 2022. The state is now entering into the next phase, which is the implementation of the new requirements outlined in the law. Implementation is set to begin on July 1st, 2025, and with it comes exciting and groundbreaking changes to the solid waste and recycling system in the state. Staff are excited to share with your board today an overview of the RMA and some of the expected outcomes from implementation, which include funding for expanded recycling opportunities, funding for contamination reduction in the system, a statewide education resource system for the uniform statewide collection list. So everyone in the state will be recycling the same items. And then the hard to recycle items, which is the producer responsibility organizations items. And the great part about this new system is the onus is of producers of hard to recycle items. They will be managing those and the cost to manage those in the state through a network of depots, collection events, and expanded on-route collection. And then overall, we're supporting the modernization of the region's commingled processing facilities with necessary upgrades to manage these materials responsibly.
Are you going to be covering what is included in the hard to recycle stuff later?
I didn't get into the list here. They are finalized as of few months ago in state law, and I certainly could follow up with that.
Honestly, just an email with a follow-up. I've traditionally gotten a lot of questions about styrofoam and other stuff. So just knowing what is on that hard to recycle list and what that would be helpful for me.
Absolutely, happy to provide
part of
that.
this presentation. Thank you.
Actually, I think you're raising something that's important for our whole community to understand, which we'll come back to during the question section.
Okay, so what does a modernized recycling system look like for the state of Oregon? Oregon has adapted a shared responsibility system model. I'll dig into the details on the slide in just a moment. But overall, the state's new shared responsibility model is going to require paper and packaging materials to be managed from the point of origin all the way to their final disposal destination. And with this system comes an influx of new funding into the state. This new system incentivizes those businesses with goods that have a high rate of recyclability and includes financial penalties for goods that don't have responsible end markets. The goal is overall to reduce or eliminate hard to recyclable materials in the long term. These strategies are important as additional funders in the recycling system will ideally shift cost away from local governments, businesses, and community members, which pay for garbage and recycling collection services. So how does it all work? I'm going to work from left to right in this PowerPoint. We have producers. So the producers sell materials into the state of Oregon, and they are required to join the Producer Responsibility Organization. The Producer Responsibility Organization, or PRO, for Oregon is Circular Action Alliance. They will collect fees from all the producers. The PRO is tasked with management of all the covered products sold into the state, and the management plan they have developed spans a 3-year time period and is approved by DEQ. Local governments and their service providers must conform to the new statewide collection requirements for recyclable materials and lead into the statewide educational efforts funded by the PRO, or Circular Action Alliance. Our existing recycling facilities will receive funds from the PRO to modernize, and a network of new PRO depot locations will be established statewide to meet the collection requirements under RMA. Responsible end markets for materials sold into the state need to be established by the PRO, and it is their responsibility to ensure that materials are managed in accordance with the new state law. Continual oversight of this entire process is managed by the state's Department of Environmental Quality and the newly formed Oregon Recycling System Advisory Council, which is made up of state representatives, local government, and industry. So you might ask how the county is preparing for RMA. Our approach is continued regional coordination with metro and local governments within the metro watershed. Regional coordination for educational and operational changes, such as on and off-ramping materials collected en route, purchasing major equipment for operations in the metro region, such as trucks and carts, and developing consistent approaches to education and outreach will be critical during the 3-year implementation period. By supporting Circular Action Alliance's program plan, staff speak to develop a deeper partnership between our organizations to ensure successful implementation of RMA. This new partnership includes important funding available to local governments and their service providers to modernize our system. DEQ has ensured CAA's program plan includes funding for things like recycling, system expansion, contamination, evaluation, and reduction, and for covering some operational costs as well. The new funding opportunities require internal preparation. As you can imagine, staff are already connecting with county council, finance, and our department leadership, and we're here before you all today to give you a primer. We're also working on tailoring our education and outreach programming to meet the new requirements under the Opportunity to Recycle Act as they are outlined in RMA. Staff will be adjusting recycling education to align with new requirements. Staff are excited about funding that's available for contamination reduction, which equates to about $3 per person in our jurisdiction. This new funding source will increase the county's bandwidth to reach underserved populations, such as those living in multifamily housing. And just acknowledging that system revamp is complicated. Staff will be preparing to come before your board as there are the general housekeeping needs, such as aligning our current rules and codes to the new state requirements. And there will potentially be contracts that will require board approval to secure funding. So what does this all mean for July 1st, 2025? Well, implementation of the approved pro plan allows for a 3-year ramp up period, and changes to the current recycling system are going to happen in phases. In Washington County, there will not be significant changes to what's accepted on en-route collection. Community members in the metro region will see more items added to the en-route recycling collection in the coming years. Over the course of the pro plan, convenient drop-off options are going to be added for hard to recycle items that can't be collected en route. So there's things like styrofoam. And investments in new items like trucks and containers and the modernization of the sorting facilities will begin to occur in the region. A statewide recycling campaign, which is supported by regionally coordinated communication, will inform our community about the changes coming with RMA. Planning and funding for a new contamination evaluation and reduction program is underway, which includes elements like improved feedback to those in the system that are causing high levels of contamination in the recycling stream. A primary goal of RMA is to continue to add accepted materials over time and ensure that all materials are managed to the highest and best use. And staff plan to return to your board later in 2025 to discuss the rule and code amendments and potentially seek contract approval.
Okay, I'm going to kick us off here. So a bill was passed years ago, get that. Implementation of this shared responsibility system, this producer responsibility organization, so on and so forth. Phased implementation. What I want to see later this year, I don't mean to sound so emphatic. I'm sorry, let me slow down. I would really like to understand this timeline. And so if I heard you correctly, which Aaron, I may not have, I heard it's a 3-year implementation period. There will be phases, and we may not know the breadth and depth of what is to happen in each phase. I'm thinking simply here. Year 1, year 2, year 3. But I hope the state or anybody does not expect us to make changes any more than annually. So I'm kind of prickly on that.
Like on the phasing.
Yeah. So I'm quite concerned about ensuring that there is clear and thoughtful communication available for all of our community members. And I appreciated you highlighted different types of service, different living circumstances and business circumstances, but also that the partners that we rely upon, such as the haulers and those that operate these depots, have the lead times as well. So I'm hoping maybe somebody has all this clarity already, but I need it to understand. So what is this 3-year phase in? What are the expectations of us as a county government? And, you know, if Metro wants us to do something more aggressive than what I'm proposing as once a year, I'm going to push. I want us to have that conversation because I think that's way too much given everything else we need to do. So I really want to know, when are we going to have clarity on, I hear the customer experience remains the same in the near term. Okay, but at what point in the implementation phasing is change expected? And when do we need to make sure that we have information on our website and available to the community members to know when hard to recycle items can be taken to drop-offs, and how will our constituents know what good source of information will be to find those sites? I mean, it's just a plethora of questions and information needs, and I'm sorry to just dump that whole smorgasbord in front
It's
of you,
great.
but
I think Circular Action Alliance and that partnership, they have a onus to provide that statewide education. And then what we'll be doing is supplemental to that and just making sure it's in alignment with what our constituents are used to. And so those conversations are already happening. And so I have a rough timeline that I could sketch out, but some of these things really are in flux depending on funding. Most of the initial funding is being allocated to the parts of the states that don't have any on-route collection.
right.
And because
They
we're
aren't, they
so
aren't even
far
doing the most
established,
basic stuff now.
they don't even have, maybe, you might be already driving 50 miles to recycle your materials. So when I say it's phased in, it's not very clear, but I can make things a little less squishy for you.
Well, and it may be that for, I appreciate how you've explained there's the Metro, well, the Metro Solid Waste Plan covers the entire geography of Washington County, not just the Metropolitan Service District area, but that we have access to more already. So maybe there isn't going to be much change for the next 3 years, and it'll be the following 3 years. But so I just look forward to that broad sketch from you so that I know what is being asked of us as a county government.
Can I get one point of clarification?
You bet.
With the annual updates, is that regard
I'm assuming
the,
it would be.
the specific materials or just to the process in general?
Oh, I'm process girl.
Okay.
You know, we do franchises on a certain timeline. We get these great newsletters from Solid Waste and Recycling about how to do certain things, so that as people change residency all throughout the area, they're going to get an update, you know, just different things like that.
But if Metro, I want to test what you're saying here. If Metro were to decide, well, we're going to start sending clamshells from place A to place B, and it doesn't matter to anyone in our region, I don't, like, we don't really care exactly about that, do we?
Oh,
I
you
guess we
mean
wanna test that.
from the facilities
Yeah,
to the
like,
markets?
yeah, like if,
No,
I mean, we don't,
I'm really focused on
things that directly affect us as customers,
Ours-
us as a region, or as an organization.
yes, cost. Yeah.
So,
Go for it. I just kicked it off.
yeah.
How do you like this smorgasbord so far?
Well, as our newest RWAC member, the Regional Waste Advisory Committee, I do want to take a moment while Erin is here to thank her for bringing me along in this discussion, to be available for me along with Merritt in relationship to issues at RWAC. And I really appreciate the partnership here. I do want to ask how you think this plan overlays with Metro's plan in relationship to the regional system facilities plan, and just so that we can see where the interaction is between those. Because I think when we're looking at potential depots, when we're looking at potential reuse malls, when we're talking about the transfer stations, how does that foundation work with the other pieces as well? And that's not for right now.
Sure.
But I think that it would be helpful to me, and I would like to be able to bring back to the board kind of an overlay of how these work together or not. And there may be places where it's or not. So, but I think we can do that without a whole lot of problem.
Well, and I think also what you're reminding me of is it is in Metro's best interest if they make an effort to come and educate us all better about their role in how the system works too.
Mhm, mhm.
Go
I
ahead.
have some, can we look at slide 5 for just a moment? I mean, I've been generally aware of this effort, et cetera, but what I really don't, this model between producers and the producer responsibility organization, that whole process, like in the 1960s economy, I could have like made sense of that. I don't understand how this really works in the current real life of, you know, someone buying something on Amazon that's coming from a third party that was bought at a Costco in a state that doesn't require this. They threw it up on Amazon and it's now being shipped here. Who's the producer there? Like how is that? Or someone buys something on TikTok shop. Like this is the reality that we live in now, and it's being drop shipped from China. Like what does that look like in this whole producer responsibility space? Because that just seems like a huge issue
So
that
the state identified who the producers are. And so it is the Amazons, the Coca-Colas of the world, the large corporations that sell large volumes of materials into the state. I don't have the
in the
threshold with
US.
me, but within nationwide, but anybody who's selling into
Okay.
the state of Oregon.
So there's a
There
definition
are
of that.
exemptions. There's a definition, you have to sell so many tons, and then they've done something called eco-modulation, which means if you have paper, which can be more environmentally friendly and more recyclable than plastic as your primary packaging material, you would pay less for paper and more for plastic. And it's all based on tons of anticipated material into the state.
Okay.
Those fees adjust annually. And how it's justified is that those large corporations are sharing that cost across their global distribution. So Oregonians shouldn't pay more for those goods and services. The upfront costs are being spread proportionally across.
And the assumption is that not every single transaction that happens is going to be covered.
Correct, because there's a certain threshold of materials you need to be bringing into the state.
So when you come back later in the year with a presentation, I would like to see at least one slide that talks about who has defined the system and the parameters, right? It's the state. And to the degree that you're able, a website link or where people can find more information about that party's role and information. It is not incumbent upon us as a county government to be the role of educator, in my view, of how this act is supposed to work for all things in people's lives. But we can provide them with direction in terms of where they should try to seek such information. And it may be at Metro too, for all I care. So, but I know I'm going to be relying upon your information to help us have those resources.
We will get questions about it from the community
Yep,
overall.
and I'm going to be saying in a lot of forums, and please follow these links.
Yeah.
That's the source of your information. All things outside of that are outside of my purview as a member of the County Board of Commissioners.
So just, you tossed out a $3 number. What was that in reference to?
Yeah, so there's contamination reduction. So currently we have about a 17% contamination rate in our recycling system. So if you think about your bin, the 17% of that could be going to the garbage because it's contamination. And so there's a concerted effort to clean up our recycling waste stream so it actually can go to the responsible markets and be recycled. And so that $3 per capita funding based on a plan approval will help us implement new programming around that type of education.
Is it a one-time $3 or
It's an annual
$3 a year per
up to $3 a year per person. Yes.
Yeah, so some people just say, well, I can't remember if this is acceptable or not for my commingled bin, so I'm just gonna throw it in and let somebody
Hope for
else
the best.
downstream figure it out. And that's where I just love the stickers that I have right on my bin.
The wishful recycling.
Yep. Wishful recycling costs money.
This program seems to be, is gonna be expensive, and I'm just wondering who's actually gonna bear the brunt of it. I think it seems to be the manufacturers, the producers.
They will.
Mhm.
Well, yeah,
They're gonna be paying.
passed along to us, but so this is, I mean, I think of, to your point, Jason, I bought a TV, big old TV, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, and you keep the box and everything just in case the TV breaks because you got to put it back in the box. So I cleaned that out the other day. I have a huge stack of styrofoam that came out of that. And it's sitting in my garage. And what do I do with this? Well, this plays nicely into this, but it still sounds like somebody's going to pay a lot of money to get this system up and going and
Yep.
make it.
But part of this cycle is that right now, the producers are not bearing the cost of the disposal of their materials. And it's societal cost burdening, right? And so trying to change that. So the producers are incentivized to use less earth destructive packaging and more packaging that can be supported through the recycle reuse. It's not to say it's going to all go away. But yeah, I have come to appreciate that this plastic pen, after the filling is used, this piece of plastic is going to outlive me.
Yes.
And, there needs to be less of this.
Is there,
Go back to pencils.
has the state seen, and maybe this is not a question you can answer, but I just always have to think about every perspective here. Have there been some producers that have just said, this is too much effort, we'll just stop doing business in Oregon?
I can't speak to that. I know that conversations have been ongoing for over 5 years.
I would suggest that rather than expecting our staff to provide the answers on Senate Bill 582 from 2001, that you ask for a one-on-one time with Senator Janine Solomon, who's very involved in this space, and she can give you more information about the work for the state's program around recycling and producer responsibility.
Before you do that, I'd like to talk.
Sure.
Commissioner Treese, how about if you enlighten us as to
Why that comment?
what this Metro recycling work group or whatever it's called that you're on, what all that means, what other stuff do we need to know or care about other than that?
Are you in reference to the RWAC?
Yes?
I think, well, I was going to bring that up in my report. The RWAC is, you all know what it is. It's a representation of elected leaders and haulers and others at the table, looking at how, frankly, how Metro spends its money in relationship to recycling and garbage hauling. So, and right now, what we're looking at is the regionals. The proposal for the regional system changes that are coming. And both the chair and I sat in one of the initial meetings when we voted on the different components in, I think it was 20.
We responded.
Yeah, but
to
it was,
surveys.
but we were out at the expo,
Convention center.
yeah, our convention center. So it's been a long time coming. What we're looking at in the phases, I can tell you the good news is that the Cornelius location is in the first phase, or in the proposal, it's in the first phase of development, which is good. And then the phases move downward, and I can provide that detail for you, but it includes looking at things like a reuse mall, looking at 6 depots, is it 6 depots around?
That's what they have in the initial plan.
Yeah, and that's around the entire metro region.
as well as the work on the transfer stations. I'm trying to think of that last row.
And assessing the wet waste tonnage
Thank you.
in the region.
So you guys need to coordinate and bring that back to us in the second half of 2025.
Sure, absolutely. I've attended 2 meetings so far.
Great. Anything else that we want to say we might need? Cool.
Great.
All
Thank you for
right.
your time today.
Yeah, keep up the good work. I know I hear from Commissioner Trees how awesome you are in all of the work she's trying to do to represent us at this Metro table.
I really appreciate the support. Thank you.
Thanks.
Aaron's doing an incredible job, and yes, thank you
Yeah.
for the support.
And not only, we care too, but we also know our community cares about our being good stewards. So onward, how we go.
Thank you. I'm going to remain since the next agenda item also is in our department. Thank you.
Yes, we're going to move on to the Disability Aging and Veteran Services Area Plan for 2025 through 2029.
Yes, well, good afternoon again. Just in case there's members of the public tuning in just now. Once again, my name is Mira Samantel. I use she, her pronouns, Director of Health and Human Services. Happy to be here today presenting this incredible work that Rebecca Miller and our team have done for all of you. So Rebecca Miller is our supervisor for Disability, Aging, and Veteran Services, otherwise known as DAVES, and she will present our 2025 to 2029, can't believe we're saying that, an area plan for all of you.
Hi, thanks for having me, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. As Mira mentioned, I'm Rebecca Miller. I supervise DAVES, and as such, I'm also the Area Agency on Aging Director. And so we are tasked as the designated Area Agency on Aging on creating what is a strategic plan, a 4-year strategic plan, also known as an area plan. So layman's terms, strategic plan.
Can I ask a question to start off?
Sure.
You have an existing plan.
Correct.
And now you've done a lot of work to develop this new plan. And I'm just wondering if you could start us off with what are some things that excite you about how you've been able to take the experience of the prior plan and carry things forward into this proposed plan?
Sure. Yeah. And I would say I have been working on area plans since I started in government because I used to do this for Multnomah County as well. So it's exciting to see the through line in
And
take
what
best
sort
practice.
of time frame does that time span?
12 years.
You're a real
So
expert.
yeah,
Aren't we
it's
lucky
been around a
there?
while.
Yeah.
Yes. So and my husband I would say, guess what I'm doing today? I'm presenting to the board about the area plan. He's like, are you still working on that? I'm like, I'm almost back. Oh, it really is.
Plan 5.0.
So every area agency on aging has to develop these, right? We get to develop these. Really, it helps guide our work. I would say the focus areas stay the same because they're directed by the state. So that's the through line. It's really outlined in the Older Americans Act, what we focus on, and it's really determined by funding and how that looks. So that's the kind of baseline that is consistent. What you see is where there's real variance is really who are where we're focusing, what the priority populations are for our area, and some of the new things we might bring. So social isolation and loneliness was something we added in the last 4-year cycle because we were in the middle of the pandemic. This cycle, we've added emergency preparedness because of the pandemic, because of wildfires and everything. We've added just a recognition that that's a body of work we continue to get pulled into. So how are we going to plan for it? And it's also now outlined in the new rules that were promulgated last year.
So let me just say up front, I really appreciate the work of not only the whole agency and this specific group, but HHS, Health and Human Services, really touches people's lives. And I've learned life is long and we go through a lot of different stages and a lot of different needs. And whereas I may not need these specific services now, I may need them in 10 or 20 years time. And in my life thus far, in terms of caring for older family members and relatives, I have come to better appreciate this type of work. I'm just back from vacation, and one thing that I have had the opportunity to reflect on, given current governmental activities, is, and I'm going to say this up front, because I'm hoping that in taking a vote to approve this plan on March 18th, that you'll make a presentation. You mentioned the Older Americans Act. Prior to the prior presentation, I've always thought of as acts as federal, congressional acts versus state, right? Because we often with the state, we talk about bill numbers. We don't use the phrase of act. So, but what I'm really trying to get to is there is work directed through federal policy, state policy, federal dollars, state dollars, and then local dollars. And so with my asking for a presentation on March 18th, I really want us to, in every aspect of our work, to be using very simple language, because, for example, one area you talk about here is nutrition. Well, it makes sure that people have food to eat. And just appreciating that our community members' tax dollars are being put to work to help make lives better. So I just wanted to put that out front, because in preparing for today, that's where some of my thoughts were at.
Thank you.
So thank you in advance for educating me more.
Of course, and I'll keep
But
those thoughts
Catherine?
in mind as I go along. So yes, I want to provide you with, actually, could you go
Okay.
back just a little bit? So I will provide you with information about the process for developing the area plan, but I'm not going to go into the 100+ page document. My goal is to really orient you so you and anyone listening can kind of navigate their way through the area plan. And also, I won't necessarily be reading every slide word for word. I'll try to hit the high points, but I can go back at any time. And also want to just give you an understanding of my reasoning for the direction we took and let you know if there's any kind of left turns or anything like that along the way, that based on community feedback. So now you can go to the next slide. Thanks. So just to orient you, our mission at Dave's is to empower, Disability, Aging, and Veteran Services is to empower older adults, veterans, and people with disabilities by connecting them with essential services and resources to enhance quality of life with compassion, dignity, and respect. And I really just like to say what our vision is, because this is exciting. We came up with it last year. So a thriving community where older adults, veterans, people with disabilities, and their families and caregivers feel connected, valued, and respected. As a trusted and comprehensive resource for Washington County, we envision a future where barriers to services are removed, inclusivity is the norm, and seeking help is free of stigma. So that lights me up.
Okay.
So about the area plan, the Area Agency on Aging, it must create this area plan, and the state determines how frequently we do it. It can be 3 or 4 years, and in Oregon, it is 4 years. So every Area Agency on Aging across the state, all 16 of us are on the same timeline, and we're all working on these now. They describe the local region, the needs that we have in the community, what the gaps are, and the services that we provide, and how we interact with other members, other organizations, and resources in the community. It will run from July 1st of this year to June 30, 2029. Until then, the current area plan is in place. And then we do update every year to the state and provide an update on activities. And I kind of highlight where you might look for that, where you can see those updates. It's due at the end of the month, and it is guided by a community needs assessment, and we did have a public comment period for 30 days. And you can go to the next slide. Thanks. So
that Older Americans Act is state or federal?
That's federal. It's been around since the 60s, enacted the same year as the Civil Rights Act. Area agencies on aging have been around in the community for a very long time, and I'll just editorialize a little bit. Health-related social needs, social determinants of health, that is work we have been doing since our inception, work in the community. So very proud of our network of area agencies on aging. So about the needs assessment, we did, that was guided by a steering committee that was public, staff, and advisory council members. We used existing data and resources built on previous successes and really developed that next needs assessment to address any gaps we had and deepen our understanding where it was a little vague for us. That was completed in late spring and summer of last year, and then we came to this board on October 15th if folks want to refresh their memory on that. And then the area plan walks through what we learned in A3, the planning and priorities section, section B, where we talk about the planning and service area profile, and then also in appendix C. So you'll see it there, and then throughout goals, objectives, activities, we try and reflect on what we heard from the community. So there was lots of opportunity for community engagement and input. I would say we've been working on this one for 18 months, really, when we started with our service equity committee. So my husband's not wrong. In a while.
They never are.
I have to show him the video. So we described the public process in section A and appendix C, and really just overall the comments were supportive. You know, I'm happy to share more on that, but we do go into that in the area plan and talk a little bit more about specifics there. It was crosswalked to all the requirements, and we feel like we're ready to submit that with your approval, hopefully in March, later in March. So the structure here. So the first point I want to make is an area plan is really when someone says what's available or a student reaches out for an interview or wants to know what it's like, I refer them to the area plan. If you're moving into a new community, find the area plan for your community. You'll really get a great understanding of what's available, what's missing, who lives here, all those sorts of things. So
if we just go to our website and search area plan in the first page of results, it'll come up.
It comes up under strategic plan. We tried to use more plain language.
Got it.
So it's on our landing page down under strategic planning.
Okay.
Yeah. So section A is the area agency planning and priorities. So it talks about how we got here, talks about the priorities in terms of if we had to do a wait list or we had a reduction in funding, what will we do, what's important. Planning and service area profile is section B, and that's really talking about what our priority populations are, who lives in our area. It also explains what we don't do and how we leverage that, because our responsibility is to be a coordinating point and a leverage point. We can't do everything, like you said. Aging is something that impacts every area of our life, but that doesn't mean we can do all the things. And there are other experts out there that we want to rely on for the things they do well. Section C is the focus area goals and objectives. There are 9 focus areas with 1 or 2 goals each and 1 or 2 objectives under each of those goals. And then of course, activities that explain who's responsible, what our timeline is. And then section D describes Oregon Project Independence, which is state funded.
That's new, isn't it?
No, that section's always been there, but it's not incredibly detailed in terms of what is like the planning. We kind of do what the rules say to do. So there's not a lot of creativity in that section. So it's been there. And that also describes the services, the definitions, what our units of measure are and things like that. And then the section E is area plan budget. And that is focused on the Older Americans Act funding that comes through the feds via state IGA and Oregon Project Independence. We do talk about some of our contracts in there, but just so you know, it does roll up into the budget that you'll review. And then there's appendices that are things like org chart, our advisory council structure, this board structure, what our public process was, updates from the previous planning cycle, like that. Next section or slide. So priority population. So the Older Americans Act, in statute, it says the Area Agency on Aging shall identify populations with the greatest economic need and the greatest social need. So that is written into statute at the federal level. And then states are allowed to further refine that. And then area agencies on aging can even go narrower than that. So it all needs to meet the federal and state, but then we know our community best and we say where those dollars need to go and how we deliver services. So the priority populations that I'll show on these two slides, it's one and the next one, are really in keeping with the federal rule, guidance from the State Unit on Aging, based on census data and our findings from the needs assessment. So go to the next slide. I was going to say in implementing, so when I look at the priority populations, I'm like, well, that's a lot of priorities. How do you manage that? And I really, in implementing, it's all about partnership and outreach, thinking of which languages do we need to translate materials into. When we reach out for partnership or contracts, how do we want to structure our RFP to make sure we're meeting those requirements? What education and knowledge do our staff need to serve these priority populations and that sort of thing? So that's the lens we use in serving these priority populations. So I mentioned that the state provides the focus areas. So the first 6 are given to us by the state in their instructions. The next 2, veterans, social isolation and loneliness, veterans have been in our plan for quite a long time. I don't actually know when it started, but long predates me. And then social isolation and loneliness was added during the pandemic, and we will retain that because that's still an issue. I just think we all have a much more visceral understanding of what that means now. And then emergency preparedness, as I mentioned, was added in this cycle. Just more so than any other, this particular section of the area plan is where you're going to see what are we going to do? How are we measuring it? How do you hold us to account for that? And we'll update that every single year. And I think that's all I have on that one. I will say that I did attach a shorthand version with just the goals and objectives. So if you or a member of the public wanted to pull that board agenda item, you could get a high level summary without digging through everything. Okay, so overarching themes, sort of the instructions I gave to the different staff members who wrote different sections based on their expertise was doing less with less, focusing on our core. During the pandemic, we were able to expand some services and get more funding out the door. And we received ARPA funding through the Older Americans Act through our services, and those will September 30th, 2025 is our deadline for those dollars. So over the next 4 years, how do we prioritize our services? We are on wait list for a number of services. So just recognizing that's the reality we're living in. So what does, for instance, focus on increasing services to our current clients? So what we found through the needs assessment is that people that we interact with that we're case managing aren't understanding all the other things that we offer. We're telling them, but they're not necessarily understanding it. They had high falls prevalence and those sorts of things. So we will be doing falls prevention screening, increasing programs for falls prevention. We'll be doing isolation and loneliness screening and getting folks programming around that. Our durable medical equipment and chore will be tied to enrolled services like options counseling or case management. We're currently doing more than our peers across the state in this regard. And so really we want to make sure if we have an ability to follow up and ensure we're doing really solid wraparound, that's we think a better use of our funds than trying to serve everybody, but really just doing a high quality job with the folks we can support. For outreach, what that means is really looking at our health systems and primary care, because we find that that's where a third of the folks are getting information from, and we don't have really great pathways with them right now. And then with employers, especially on the veteran side, we've had great traction with large employers like Nike, Intel, Columbia, just meeting with employee resource groups, doing presentations out there. So it's a great way to reach family caregivers or younger veterans. And then, of course, just making sure our partnerships with our current contracts, we contract with 30 different entities out there, just making sure we have really solid referral pathways back and forth to each other. So I had mentioned the area plan budget. So it does what you see in the document, describes things you'll find in Fund 198 in the aging services budget when it comes to you. So it does align to that. And it is, if you dig into the budget, a lot of the way the dollars are sliced in there are based on what is required of us. So we have a little less flexibility in that than, we have less flexibility. I'll just leave it there. And again, that part is also updated annually.
The part that was difficult to review was I always appreciate the further explanation in the comments slash explanation, but the rows, since it's a PDF file, don't expand.
Mm.
So I was like, darn, there's some other information there that I would have liked to have gleaned. It's not, let me be clear. I don't have to have it in order
Okay.
to support this.
Okay.
Okay.
You were curious.
Yes, absolutely. Seeing this by category, and I was particularly interested in the local match because that's where it helps us get a picture for how the general fund is needed in order to secure this larger suite of dollars, and just appreciating all the connectivity. That's all.
So Chair, just thank you for lifting that up. So if you don't mind, if I can just add in, I just want to express appreciation for HHS's leadership and specifically Rebecca's. This is one area of our county that some of the uncertainty with the federal funding and also the challenges of the general fund are really connecting real and deep. So some board members have asked, is there anxiety, of staff, like what's going to happen? Absolutely. And I just
In
want
the red zone.
yeah. And I do want to just repeat the phrase that I've said before, we won't meet chaos with chaos. And this group is so committed, as you see just in Rebecca's presentation and also the materials, just meeting our community where they're at. And that will continue even in the state of anxiety. So just kudos to staff and Commissioner Snipe for this is a good, how the federal, the state, and general funds intersect as you get immersed in the county budget.
If on this page
Mhm.
and looking at these two tables, so I'm on page 216 of 217.
Are you on the
Uh,
cash match in kind match?
Yeah,
Okay.
what I'm hoping you can help me appreciate is the percentage of general fund that is that is provided in order to leverage what is it, 5.964211, so almost 6,000. Wow, that's a pretty darn good return on investment.
It is. Yes. So there's
I
a
can't do the math as well as
Somebody over here.
supercomputer Jerry Willis.
You said 6,000, but you're meaning
I meant
6
6
million.
million. Yes, yeah.
So there's a requirement under the Older Americans Act that it be matched by 25% of some titles. Other titles are 15%. Anything we can, if we use that funding in contract, we pass that requirement to our contractors. So really, we're matching staff time and any internal expenses. So that's the requirement. And you can't see the spreadsheet, I'm realizing, because it is a PDF. So we could probably get that. I don't know how to do that, but someone can figure that out. But
Just mention it March 18th.
yeah, okay, we can do that. So,
And this is where I really did appreciate the 4 pagers, the 2 pagers, 4 pages of information. But as I went through it, I was like, yeah, I understand why we use the phraseology about nutrition program. I'm just going to use that as an example. So much of what you do goes back to ensuring through your vision, right? That members feel connected, valued, and respected. Really, that people can thrive,
Mhm.
right? And it's everything from people get the food that they need, right? I mean, needs change over life. And this plan, as you say, we can't help everyone.
No.
We don't have the resources to do that. But we are able to help a lot of people. You're able to help a lot of people. And, you know, making sure people have the food that they need for a healthy diet, or know how to better take care of themselves physically and mentally. You know, the support that we all want and need as humans. It's really vital and important, you know, and for our veterans, making sure that we are respectful of the service that they had not only while on active duty, but continue to experience through the full course of their life. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but I'm more highly sensitized to how the role that we need to play in county government in telling the story to our community members of how their federal dollars and their state dollars help us or enable us as a county government to help them live thriving lives here in our Washington County community. I mean, we need to be loud and proud with every single presentation moving forward. Because nobody else is going to be telling the story of the good work of government. We've got to do it. And our community relies upon us to do it. Sorry, I spoke my piece.
I really liked the diversity of approaches to wellness, if you will. You know, including, you know, are they isolated? You know, all the different pieces. It's so comprehensive, and I appreciated that. And I think about people I've known in my life that could have benefited from some of this type of work. So, and it looks so. The plan looks so well informed by what we know in today's world. So I appreciate that as well.
Thank you.
Anything else from Commissioner Williams?
Good job.
Yeah, I just, the level of detail and thought is very obvious and, you know, it's not directly connected, but this morning's presentation as well, you just feel, you know, the love of the community, I think, through the work, and I see that here too.
And it's true. Yeah.
Yet another plan under your belt.
Thank you.
Yep.
We-
You tell your husband you earned it.
I don't.
Tell them tomorrow you're starting on the next.
No, you implement this one. It's about 2 years in advance, pulling out that list of things we should consider the
Nice
next
job.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for support. Thanks for being here. Okay. It is 2:15. We have just board and leadership communication left. Are we A-okay with going through that without a break? Okay, skip head nod. So who wants to go first?
I think Jerry should.
Yeah, Derek.
I'll go first.
You go first.
Yes,
Wait.
I'll go first if you don't mind.
I'm just thinking about what you did last week.
So, 2 weeks ago, I worked remotely. It was a 4-day work week with the President's Day holiday. So I worked Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday was a vacation day for me. The notable experience that I want to provide is that I had a meet and greet meeting, virtual, with Portland Mayor Wilson. And 15 minutes before that, I got a call from Multnomah County Chair Jessica Vega Peterson about a letter that she would be sending us, which she did. And she made several statements, and I pushed back on several statements. And then she had to run off to a meeting. And so in between those two meetings, I think it was in between, maybe it was after. Anyway, I made sure Ms. Angie received an email from me that summarized each of those conversations. And knowing that I was working remotely from the state of Maine and would likely end 3 hours ahead in time, I made the conscious decision to use Ms. Angie as the point person because I knew I was not mindful of everything that might actually be happening within the organization and on the ground. So I hope you got the information you all may have needed. And then on Friday morning, I went on vacation for all of last week. As I had noted before I'd gone, I thought I really needed the vacation break. Happy to report it was a great vacation break. I did not turn my work cell phone on. I did not watch the news or listen to any news on the radio. I did try to catch up with a few news media articles, and I was like, oh boy, thank you, colleagues, for handling whatever it is that you're going through. But I also knew that you would be just fine because you are very patient and diligent in being on the journey as a full board across our whole portfolio. So I returned on Sunday and started catching up on things yesterday, and I'm just wicked proud of all of you. Thank you very much.
So I'm happy to say that it's nice to have you back, Chair Catherine Treese,
Yeah.
because that's what I said in the board meeting.
And I hope I got a good laugh. Did you guys
Oh,
laugh?
I got a very good laugh,
Yeah.
even from the audience.
Jason and I were going, oh.
Well, anyway, that's all I had to say. Oh, I did at the yesterday groundbreaking of the Hillsborough shelter. I had a short conversation with Council President Peterson. One of the emails I have not read yet was the follow-up to the February 24th Metro President's Work Group on housing, homelessness and affordable housing, and that whole transition planning. And she said that no worries, you're not behind on the homework assignment, that was still coming. So it may have come into our email during the course of today. But we do have a homework assignment before the next committee, which I believe is next Monday, the 10th, maybe?
No, it's the 17th.
Okay, thank you. And it's supposed to be case study information. So as we all know, we are the only multi-county region in the country trying to address this homeless crisis as a region. I think Governor Kotek put it well that all of our efforts to date have served to blunt the crisis, but we do continue to be at crisis levels. We have a lot to be proud of, but we need to look at how we can streamline, have improved communication, things of that nature. So Commissioner Willie and I will continue to serve.
It is on the 10th. I misspoke there. It's the next one is next Monday. It's the 10th.
Thank you. Thank you. I did have two questions. I think AOC Ledge Committee, that's next Monday, isn't it? Okay, so I'm trying to figure out, given everything that's happening at the federal level, I was surprised at how well attended the meeting was in February, the in-person. I was remote, and so I'm contemplating going down. So we'll see.
I
But that-
only go to the one.
Yeah.
Go to both of them.
So but the key question I wanted to ask is for this month of March, the state of the city for Beaverton and Forest Grove conflict. They're on the 17th. And so I wanted to make sure that we have coverage. You'll be on vacation. Okay.
Yeah, I'll be there at Forest Grove.
Okay. Bryn, do you have any idea what Commissioner Fai's plans are for that? Is she planning to attend either of those?
Is it the evening of the 17th?
Yes, there.
I can go to Beaverton.
Okay. Okay.
That would be helpful. I would actually just had Bryn working on the scheduling of all the state of the cities in District 3, but we did not cover Beaverton specifically.
Well, what I think is given which there. Okay, so Grace, why don't we set me up for Forest Grove? So we've got 2 and 2.
Okay.
Cool, great.
Mhm.
Thank you. That's it for me. Sorry, I more than used my 5 minutes.
Bryn,
Who else?
can you put the Beaverton State of the City on my calendar with the info? Thank you.
And you may have to RSVP.
Yeah, that too, please. Thank you for that.
Yep.
Do you want me to go next?
Sure.
Uh, Last Wednesday, I drove down to Salem with several of our HHS staff in support of Senate Bill 610. This is the bill that looks at reworking the formula that allows for funding. I think the
This is
staff
the burn.
yes.
Yeah.
The staff did a great job, and my hat's off to Zocker for pulling everything together. Everyone did a really good job. It was an evening meeting, and Brzezinski was kind of in a rush to get it over with, and limited all of our testimony to 2 minutes when I had a 6-minute testimony. So it was a little difficult, but we got through everything. I'm not sure what the next steps are going to be. This is a big ask, so we will get updates from GR as we move forward.
I really like the process that GR has so that they include testimony, whether it's from staff or from us. So I'm counting on, I testified yesterday at a committee, and that was so yesterday, I can't even remember what the topic was. So we'll make sure that GR sends that in their weekly report. But you're underscoring that sometimes when you go to testify in person at a committee, your original presentation time gets cut down. What I've done on that in the past is, that's why I always carry a hard copy, is I just scratch out and just try to focus on the key points. But I like to ensure that in distributing it to my colleagues, you have both what the big umbrella set was, as well as here's the minimal set that I was able to present. So
Well,
I don't know which we got in the.
You've got the full. And I can tell you that Senator Brzezinski heard from Senator Campos, and I was next. And it was at that point that he announced 2 minutes. So I didn't even have the opportunity to X out. So, but I don't think it mattered. I was there to say to our fellow politicians, these are our shared constituents. We are not serving them in the way that we should be serving them through this formula. We need to work on this. And then the detail followed. But like I said, Zucker did a really good job. I had the opportunity to talk to Senator Lieber for a few minutes afterwards. So got her perspective, shared that with the team. And all in all, I think everybody felt that they did their part, and we worked together really well. I was very pleased about that. Thursday, I spent the morning at the PAB meeting and we heard all the presentations. I got my ratings in, all of that is done. I will follow up with this set of applications, but I know I have a briefing with you coming up about where we are. I don't think you will join after we're done with this whole set of applications. That afternoon, I went over to Metro for the RWAC meeting. We've already talked about that. On Friday night, I did attend the Centro Gala. That was a very nice event. And yesterday, I went to the Hillsborough Year-Round Shelter groundbreaking. All of us were there. I just want to say that, Tara, I think your comments were really good. And they were really positive in a difficult time. And I just want to recognize that. I think it was well done, very well done. Last night was our monthly acre meeting, and it was Jason's first meeting. I want to give a shout out to interim director. It's
Jennifer.
Kearley. Jennifer Kearley. I just need to remember how to pronounce her last name. They did a fabulous job, but I think what's really impressive is how the acre group asks great questions. They really did participate. They were active, and it was a really good evening, I think. Tomorrow,
We're engaged with just about every speaker. I mean, I only made 3 or 4 of the meetings before I turned it over to Jason, but they're engaged. It's a good group.
So they ask really smart questions.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Really smart questions.
and they ask each other questions as well. They engaged Olga around some educational questions. So it's an environment where people share information freely, and it's comfortable. This Wednesday night, no, is it Wednesday? Yes, I'm having my town hall, and that's yours is Thursday. No, yours is Wednesday. Yeah, I'm Wednesday night, and yours is Thursday night, I think.
Yours is with the sheriff, public safety and
Yeah.
justice, and I'm
Budget.
county budget and living within our means.
Yeah.
Doesn't that just trip your?
You drew the short straw there.
No, I gave myself that.
Yeah, but I think we'll see how either way, we have a lot of
Hey,
territory
it's
covered.
team effort,
That's right.
community, conversation.
That's
It's-
right.
It's a team sport.
So on Friday, I'm going over to Portland for the Metro Chamber meeting of local electeds. I think several of us are going to that. And then I have on my schedule a lunch with Mayor Wilson, and I believe that they reached out to us. So I'm having that meeting, and then in the afternoon, I've had a call with several constituents about environmental issues. I think that their interest is around climate-related staffing, is what I'm assuming this is going to be about. So that's my report.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Jason.
Is that meeting with the 350 Washington County group or similar?
I'm getting a yes. I just
Oh,
have
Brent
names,
says-
but I'm getting a yes from Maida.
Okay. They met with me last week, and I will just, that was a meeting I had on Thursday, and what I'll share and Ms. Angie, I will connect with you. What I left the meeting with was not things that they specifically said, but as I reflected, some potentially creative, bigger picture things to think about. So I'll connect with you about those. I don't think now is the right time for that.
I haven't absorbed the rolling agenda that's in our roundtable packet yet. And actually, I usually take a look at it after Kevin updates the packets after the Wednesday meeting. Do we have a date by which the whole topic of climate resiliency and public health is coming back to us? Has that been settled, or Ms. Angie, do you have a target month where that might be reasonable?
So in your inbox, actually sent on Thursday, February 27th,
Okay.
there is a climate memo in your inbox, which talks,
Came from Marnie.
yes, which talks
Okay.
about our One Washington
I haven't
County
read it yet.
approach to climate action. So feel free, review that memo. If you would like a formal presentation at a work session, we could schedule that. It would be with the same content.
Thank you. Yeah, please. Thank
Yeah,
you. No, you're,
I prompted a thought.
yes.
Friday morning, I met with Molly Hogan from the Welcome Home Coalition. I think that was just good for me to hear about the perspectives of some of the smaller providers in the SHS environment, and I think that was helpful for me, and I took away some useful information there. Friday afternoon, we had both Commissioner Willie and I attended the PSCC legislative topics meeting, and I think what came out of that were a couple things. One, the letter that was presented to the board. We didn't really participate in the drafting of that in a lot of detail, but
Presented.
yeah, that
Yeah,
we got
that's
earlier
today.
today, or that was emailed and then was presented. And then
We got a
that's,
letter last year too.
yeah, I'm sure we'll get one next year too.
Yep.
What came out of that though too was I had offered to, Pablo was there obviously, and I offered to just like, what kind of help do you need right now that I can provide on the public safety front with sort of advocacy at the legislature? So we met on Monday about that, and Commissioner Willie, I know you wanted to be in the meeting. The meeting happened before you'd even asked to be part of the meeting, or timing wise, it just happened that way. So I am going to be doing a couple of very strategic things that they asked on that front. So I am going to work on that as requested, but in tandem with the government affairs team.
And I'm actually on point with them on that too.
Okay. And I can just briefly mention to you what they've asked me to do if you have questions about it, but it's pretty minimal. And with legislators that are one legislator in particular that I have a close relationship with. So, Saturday, I went to Mesa Demo Day. I mentioned that last week, but what was really interesting is to see that this is at OMSI and with middle school and high school kids and their innovation, and their theme is around innovating for sustainability. And so that was really interesting to see what a bunch of super smart people are going to be doing as they become adults in some of that space. I'm excited about that. Obviously, yesterday went to the Hillsborough year-round shelter groundbreaking with all of you. We had the first acre meeting. I was really impressed and happy about that. On Friday, I think of this week, is the state of the economy in Central City downtown at the PBA. Is that the same meeting you're referencing?
I think so.
Okay, so I am planning to attend that as well.
That's Friday,
The
and
7th.
yeah, at 8:30. That's Portland Metro Chamber electeds briefing. That's what. That's what you're talking about.
I think so.
So back on PSCC.
Yeah.
Were they provided with a briefing on the public safety levy polling or any work yet?
At the meeting on Friday,
Mhm.
there was not specific comment on the levy polling.
Okay.
Yeah, there was. I believe they have, because they did talk about that. They were actually pleased, is what I heard. Pleased with polling results. We had some other little concerns because it's down a little bit, but that's the only comment that I can recall that they talked about.
Are you talking about?
The polling for the for the levy.
Did they get briefed in the prior month when I was not there?
They received a briefing in January.
Yeah, that's so.
So, yeah, it's March. We need to refer by the beginning of June. So one of the things I'm going to be looking for out of the rolling agenda plan is when levy topics are coming here and how our advisory groups, there are different ones and it's a very small set, are on the journey with us.
I can tell you that not related to the legislative meeting, but the levy steering committee, we had, is Aaron in the room too? No. We had a very robust discussion about that topic actually at our last meeting a week and a half ago. So particularly around the timing, backing everything up, what is all sort of interacting with each other. So I think you'll be pleased with the work on that. I don't know about that's what you're asking about, not the library, but.
That is scheduled for next week for your board.
Okay, great. Thank you. You're up next, Commissioner
Oh,
Willie.
okay, all right. Well, last week I met with Mike Cafaretta, who's with the Oregon Department of Forestry, and he's on loan to STF and STIA now, the Salmonberry Trail, to try and, you know, I guess quantify the hoops we got to jump through. I never realized how complex building a trail would be with a whole variety of permitting and with surveys
How
and
long was that trail
everything
again?
is
80 miles?
Yeah.
well, it's
And you didn't think about that?
no. This is my 5 minutes. You've already got. We're talking about the 7 miles we're trying to build between here and Stubb Stewart. But anyway, so it was good to do that. Diami's doing a great job of representing Washington County. He's been on this project for a long time, so it's good to have him on the team as well. So it was good to have that conversation. I also had lunch with the Portland mayor, and it was he told me what he asked you. He asked you for money, and you said we don't have any. And he laughed. But it was kind of that general.
$4.25.
I think you gave him a number, but it wasn't nearly the number he wanted to hear. Not that we're going to give him, but that we had available on reserves or something like that. But anyway, it was a good conversation. We talked about a lot of stuff. He's a beeve, and I had my WSU lapel on, so we talked a lot about that kind of stuff. But
Well, I also spent time in our meet and greet talking about how you know, we do need the city of Portland to be successful, both in terms of recovering from the perception of downtown Portland through the pandemic and all the riots, as well as they're being successful in a updated form of government, and that we're not trying to make their life any more difficult at all, because they have those challenges, but also made sure, you know, that we have a budget gap as well. And the history of building our homeless system of care, that he didn't necessarily have the benefit.
Did you ask for money for us from them to help with our budget gap?
Well, he was talking about SHS money, not general fund money, but
Give that a whirl.
We'll ask him on Friday.
yeah.
Yeah, he also was not aware of our tax rate, our property tax rate.
Yes.
You know,
Hmm.
that's the beauty of share on these virtual meetings. I was able to not just speak to it, but show him.
Yeah, well, he brought up the how proud he is of the rendition of what the Major League Baseball stadium was going to look like, and I said, "Stop that! We already have a Major League Baseball team out here in Hillsville."
Talk to me when you have a team.
Yeah.
Talk to me when you have a
So anyway, that was it. Was a very good meeting. I like him.
Who's his favorite baseball team?
Oh, the Hops, of course. I didn't ask him. I don't know. He'll take any baseball
I'm
team.
sorry, I'm using your 5
Exactly.
minutes.
That's right. Council of Forest Trust Lands, we had a legislative meeting to discuss 4 bills, no, 3 last week, and make a decision on them. One of them was Senate Bill 404, which is where basically the trust land counties can take their forest back. And so I supported that, even though knowing full well that we're not going to do that. And I think Tillamook and Clatsop would agree with that. But the southern trust counties want that option. So
There's 4 different forestry bills. Wow.
there's probably more than that, but these 3 were that one, 3103. I testified on 3103 via Zoom on Monday. I don't even know what today is. Yeah,
Today's Tuesday.
Monday. That's the one where we're asking the Department of Forestry, the Department of Forestry to provide a 10-year projection of harvest every 10 years. And last year it was deemed the Hampton bill. They've relaxed a number of the things in it, so they were asking for just basically a 10-year sustainable harvest. And they are, of course, getting pushback from that, but I supported that and testified on that. And then Senate Bill 1051 is the one where the governor wants to appoint the ability to appoint the state forester. And if you remember, our state forester resigned. So that is an empty position right now. We voted to oppose that because we believe that the state forester should be appointed by the Board of Forestry, and that also that bill says that the state forester does not have to have any forestry expertise.
Right?
So they're saying either the number one or number two has to have the forestry expertise, the other one doesn't have to. And so, which is an interesting perspective, trying to put maybe a business person in the seat of a state forester. I don't know. Anyway, we opposed that one. And we'll see where those go. Met with Chief Deputy Errol McCrae. It's always good to talk to him about what's going on in our Sheriff's Department. The PSCC legislative thing, Jason already talked about that. The year-round shelter. I have a fair board meeting tomorrow, and then all of us will be at the Portland Metro Chamber on Friday. And I have a meeting with the new bank's mayor, Marcia Kirk, about a few things, Five Oaks being one of them. So
Well, I
it
will
is to
be a little more caught up when we have our roundtable on Thursday.
On 5 Oaks? Or
No, just caught up.
Oh, I just gave you the download.
I know, but I need to absorb it. I need a little time to have that like a good wine. What do you use the word, mature or mellow or
Will
whatever?
Commissioner Phi be back for Thursday roundtable?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
So yeah,
Thank you, friend.
there's plenty going on. So yeah, get caught up, and then we'll have next week.
Yep.
Mhm.
Hi, Ms. Angie.
Hi. I guess it's my turn. So Washington County Emergency Medical Services will be announcing today the launch of the Nurse Navigation program. As your board's aware, will enhance the county's 911 emergency response capabilities to better serve its community members. I'm not going to go into any more detail. Your board just recently had a presentation on this, and it's really exciting. We are at this milestone, and just want to give huge kudos to our Washington County Consolidated Communications Agency, WACA, EMS providers, local fire and global medical response, GMR, and American Medical Response, AMR, as well. So this really is a partnership model to pull this off. During the board meeting today, Chair, you had asked about adding the frequently asked questions. Staff got right on this over the lunch hour. You can now find the frequently asked questions in the elections suite of pages under elections resources section.
Cool.
Which is visible along the right-hand column of the elections homepage. So
Great.
hopefully that's accessible to community and not just having to find it on our board agenda. I also want to share the next 3 days. I, along with the assistant county administrators, will be deep into budget. So you will not find me in my office, and there may be more than likely delays to emails, text, or calls over the next 3 days. I have had a couple just inquiries from individual board members. How's this ICMA president thing going for you? Last week I was in Denver, and that was the last of the announcements to the impacts of USAID. So ICMA 30% of its budget actually was USAID grants and contracts. That was working directly with local governments across the world. Some of those countries include Indonesia, Philippines, India, Africa, Dominican Republic, and the Ukraine. And so we as an organization have had to go through the painful process of shutting those programs down and also doing layoffs. I had not expected this to happen at a time we were actually in a transition of not having an executive director. So if you wondered what I was doing on the weekend for a while, it's been working through these challenges, connecting it to here to Washington County. What's been very helpful is seeing how some of these actions have occurred, understanding how to try to get the paybacks from the federal government if we haven't received all the obligated dollars. And without breaking any privilege I still need to maintain, I know that if we do have loss of funding, I'll be able to translate that learning from that experience here to Washington County.
Well, I can say it is very sad that as a country, we are stepping back from advancing democracy and democratic forms of government all across our globe. And the public servants that are needed in order to aspire to those values. So thank you for being so excellent in your organization management. Ms. Duke Dreesen.
Welcome back, Chair. Our office has been really busy last week and this, trying to resolve a number of cases, which some we have already brought to you, some we will bring to you, I'm sure, in the coming weeks. Among those, we were able to successfully, with your board's leadership, resolve 2 of those excess proceed claims successfully. So it feels good to check those off the list and get those resolved. Continuing to work on that information of what other liabilities we may have out there. We also continue to keep receiving questions about immigration enforcement in here in Oregon, and as it may, arise in the scope in the course of our employees' duties. So we're continuing to respond to those questions and meet staff where they're at and answer their questions as they arise, and we'll continue to do that as things unfold. I also just want to take a moment to say I so enjoyed the discussion from our excellent juvenile staff. Just as a community member and a parent, I found it so enlightening and I learned a lot, and just very thankful for the people who do this work that's often unseen if you're lucky, but is so very critical and important. So I also wanted to thank Juvenile and all their good work.
It's at Acre.
Yes, at Acre. Thank you.
Excellent. And that packet of materials is available on our meeting portal. Great. Clean water, now shifting from Washington County to Clean Water Services.
Thank you, Chair Harrington, and good afternoon, Board of Directors. As you talk to Portland, we should connect because they owe us some sewer billing still.
Really?
Camel deliver them.
No kidding.
Would you like me to hand them the invoices just to?
Yeah,
It wouldn't hurt.
yeah, we're talking with staff and because
Seriously, send me information.
He'll love that. You better pick up lunch.
I know. 2 announcements. First one is the board asked us to take a look at how we're providing public access to our board meetings and our board learning and work sessions. So right now the team was able to navigate. If you go to About on our website, and then there's a button under Contact Us called Boards and Meetings. That was the quickest way they could navigate it. So it links to the county website as well as it has our items uploaded to the website. As they redo the website, they'll figure out a better way.
Is that an active project or one for future years?
It's an active project. They're looking at the website and
So they put it up there quickly, but then they're
gonna think about how to navigate it. It was interesting. We were limited. We actually wanted to put it in a different place, but we were sort of limited by some constraints. But They're still working on it, but it's all up there now, which is great. The second item is the board requested us to review the federal funding we're receiving. So we'll be submitting a report under leadership communication that will update federal funding. We also have a quarterly investment report that we want to provide as part of that. And also the update on our buildings, the schedule. So we'll have those reports. They're all in the queue.
If I could, for both agencies, I saw a piece on the national news, I guess maybe I watched NBC last night, that I may not have understood completely, but it made me wonder for both Washington County and Clean Water Services. It talked about how at the federal level, that federal efforts to work to prevent or be mindful of cyber intrusion from Russia, that was all pulled the plug. And so what it caused me to think about is, does that mean that our IT cybersecurity will have to make up for that loss of the federal level policing that effort, for lack of better explanation? So, I know that our IT groups work really hard to watch out for cyber intrusion, but each of our agencies carries with it a whole lot of infrastructure and equipment and whatnot. We don't need anybody trying to intrude into our sewer systems, right? Or other process controls and whatnot. So, holy smokes.
Yeah, we just had a briefing from both EPA and the Department of Homeland Security.
We being
Clean Water Services and the entire water sector. So they did so it was a non-classified briefing, but it was a little surprising what they briefed us on. And so we do have an internal cybersecurity audit going on at Clean Water Services, because we do have the control systems that we control the automation of the plant with, and pump stations, and so we're looking at to make sure we're not vulnerable to someone controlling the treatment plants from afar.
Well, plus there's the Scoggins Dam master
Mm-hmm.
and controls for releases and whatnot.
Sounds like a James Bond movie, doesn't it? Yeah.
James Bond right here in Washington County.
So if it remains much more.
I was just gonna say, I'd like a little less James Bond right now. Let me check in with our IT staff and get back to the board if there's any concerns.
I don't think there's,
I think some of this we're continuing to learn with each order,
yeah.
Really what it means to Washington County. Maybe just sharing on declaring English as the official language at Washington County. We're going to continue to offer translation and interpretation as it aligns clearly with civil rights law. And so I think it's unpacking sometimes when there's these sound clips of what that actually means to us as local government and delivering essential services to our community members in a way that is accessible to what their individual needs are. So it's taking the soundbite and then unpack it. Really, what does that mean, and how does that potentially or in reality impact funding, and what could be future impact? It's evolving.
Well, I appreciate your theme of we're not going to react to chaos with chaos. Not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I think that brings us to the end of today, unless anyone has anything else. Okay, well, here we go with the first work week of the month of March. Our meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you.